Hi. So this is going to be a video response to Steve Shive's video, Why Atheism Needs Feminism. It's actually an old video, but Steve Shives insists that the atheist YouTube community lacks women and minorities. Well, I am a woman, as you can see, and I'm a minority. Not sure if I can be qualified as a colored woman though, because as you can see, I'm pale as white shit. But according to Seward Park, I am, so there you go. So I did try to join the YouTube atheist community a few years ago, but actually I was censored when I touch upon the topic of race. This is a long story. But by a woman, Steve, not by a white male. And I'm pretty sure she's a SJW. And I had to take down all my videos, even the one on atheism. And after that, I just wasn't really motivated anymore. But since it's soon to be a new year, I just feel like I should respond because Steve Shives so ardently advocate for a non-cisgender white male voice. Okay. So even though I haven't been very active on making YouTube videos, I have been pretty active on YouTube making comments and having long discussions. I just want to tell you, Steve, that regarding the whole cyber violence thing that's been so blown out of proportion, you might be behooved to know that when I was having these discussions, more often than not, people thought that I was a male. I was a man. And when they thought that, I was certainly attacked just as much, most likely more, than when I had stated that I was in fact a woman. And when I tell them that I was in fact a woman, what they generally do is they usually take a step back. Imagine that. This is the same with the minority issue. Some of these people, when they run out of arguments against me, they will start doing like the grammar police or spelling police or something. They will say things like, oh, your grammar totally sucks, like your English sucks. They usually don't do that when, if I told them beforehand that, or if I tell them afterwards, they tend to stop. That English is not my native language, not my first language. I will probably have bad grammar for the rest of my life. So the point is, I definitely did not receive privileges when they thought that I was an English-speaking male. But as a minority woman, as a minority female, I was generally held onto a different standard. Imagine that. Okay, so the real problem, Steve, that I perceive in the atheist skeptic community is part of this larger issue of shutting people up before even attempting to understand their points, just because they sound outrageous to you. Okay, it's this condescending attitude that you think you know what's good for women, what's good for minorities, and how to get them a voice. You believe that the reason there aren't as many women and minorities in the atheist community as you would like is because it's dominated by white males, such as yourself. And somehow this makes females and minorities turn away from the community as if we cannot stand up for ourselves. And you believe that having diversity will solve this problem. Okay, let me tell you something. Steve. I do treasure diversity very much. I love diversity. And still, I would have absolutely no problems if 100% of the atheist community is white male, as long as nobody's stopping anybody from having an opinion, and that's how it turns out. So that's how it turned out from individual choice. Not only that, Steve, but you have this weird perception that if in a community it's majority or all whites. Then there is no diversity. I, on the other hand, would find the community to be much more fulfilling in terms of diversity if you have if you have a community that consists of all whites, but they're whites from North America, so Canada and United States, whites from South America, whites from Northern Western Europe, Southwestern Europe, from Eastern Europe, from the Middle East. Then let's say a community with, let's say, 1/4, fifth generation or more white Americans, fifth generation, 1/4, fifth generation or more African Americans, 1/4, fifth generation or more Asian Americans, and 1/4, fifth generation or more Latino Americans. And if you cannot see how the formal case constitute a far better diversity in the pure sense of that word than the latter case, then I don't know what to tell you other than you really need to get out more and widen your scope a little. I recently went to Europe for conferences, and you really cannot imagine how intellectually stimulating it is to be among Brits, French, Spaniards, Germans, Greeks, as well as Americans and Canadians, and there are also Romanians. And yes, most of them happen to be white males. Now, if you just look at us in a group sitting there in a table talking to each other, you might only see me and you will confer in your head, oh, little diversity there is in such an international conference, that poor non-white woman over there sitting there with a bunch of white males. She must be so oppressed right now. Yeah. Because somehow in an international conference, a conference where you had people speaking 5 or 6 different languages other than English, but all had to use English, usually with some significant difficulty, an English speaker, such as myself, will be oppressed and prevented somehow from voicing her opinions. You go to London and you take their subway, every fourth person you're going to encounter will speak another language other than English. And you usually will hear 5 or 6 different ones. That's why I feel the most welcome, because I'm just also another foreigner. I'm no different than anybody else there. Okay? That's diversity, Steve. It's not race or skin color. It's culture and ideas. So I came from a traditional background where gender roles are much more defined traditionally, in a traditional way, than you would have in the liberal West. I do have strong opinions about many subjects, and I used to be a feminist. But I'm not a feminist any longer because people like you, Steve, push me out when they bring this double standard that they want to listen to more women, more minorities, but of course only if that voice fits with what you and them believe in the first place. So I bet that if I were to join your little Atheist Plus group as a women minority, and I voice my opinions, I bet that your wife will probably be among the first people to kick me out of there. And she and the others will probably accuse me of internalized misogyny, something I hear very common. In fact, I had a discussion with a feminist on Game of Thrones, and I bring up the point that, okay, so Game of Thrones shows a lot of rape. Well, they also show torture, they also show men going to battles, that kind of thing, and she was like, oh my god, how dare you compare rape to men going to battles? I mean, blah, blah, blah. And I used arguments and I said they're very comparable. I mean, they're different problems, but they're very comparable in pretty much all the ways that she was trying to say how rape was traumatizing women. And then she ends up by saying to me that, oh, I'm a misogynist and I'm just doing this to make men like me. Okay. When I went to Spain, I don't speak Spanish. But the Spaniards there, they also spoke very little English compared to some of the other non-English speaking countries in Europe. And yet, even if I just spoke one word, like a station or something like that, to somebody there, women or men, which, would understandably sound very vulgar, just kind of go like, you know, um, San Domingo, like, it's not really polite at all. But they would help me. Both men and women, they would help me. In fact, as a woman, you know, you would have men, I mean, I would have men come to my aid without me even asking. And when I was in Spain, another time I went to this party until 3 a.m. in the morning with a bunch of European people. And one of the guys who I became a friend with, he's French. And if I remember correctly, this was also his first time in Spain as well. He made sure that he stayed with me while we wandered the streets in a foreign country for both of us. At night, like when there was nobody on the streets, it was very late. And hey, he was totally objectifying me because the more caring thing for him to do was to leave me in the streets in a foreign country where I don't speak the language at 3 a.m. in the morning. I mean, what was he thinking? Asked me for a cup of coffee? Then I would have been raped. So eventually, I was hungry. I believe he was also hungry, but his language skills a bit better than mine. He helped us find this bar or cafe or mini restaurant. I don't know what it is. That, anyways, opens really late. So, anyways, after we left, my friend remarked, I like these people. Weird, right? He didn't walk into the bar and just go like, "Hello, my cisgender white brothers." I'm telling you, Steve, as a minority woman, I'm not being oppressed. I'm not being silenced by cisgender white males. The only people who are trying to actually silence me are the people like SJWs who throw away all skepticism in favor of ideology and their own personal sensitivities and feelings. Because, it's all about the feels. I feel you, Steve, and I think, actually, in all due honesty, the best favor you can do right now to help diversity and equality is to stop letting your wife oppress you. And take it from me, Steve, she is oppressing you. Good luck.